Hang on, Derek, hang on. Whoa. Slow down.
You like that?
I thought you said, I thought he put his thumb up. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dorset Council's Licensing and Gambling Apps Committee, and well done for getting here. Thank you. We have lots of apologies, Megan, don't we?
Yes, we do. We've received a few apologies from councillors Louise Bown, Andrew Starr, Kathy Lugg. David Morgan has sent his apologies, but I can see that he's now online. And just to let you know as well, Claudia Webb, she's also hoping to join online, but if not, we'll note her apologies. I think she's just joined now.
Okay, thank you very much, Megan. No others, of course. I think that's everybody accounted for. Do I have your permission to sign the minutes of Wednesday, the 12th of November of this committee? I'm sure you can all remember what's in there.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Read
much.
it thoroughly.
Cheers, thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest, please? Thank you. There's no public participation, no questions from the public. And so we go straight over to John, who would like to introduce our statement of licensing policy. John, over to you. Thank you.
Morning, Chairman. Thank you. Good morning, committee. It's our licensing policy. So pubs, clubs, off licenses, takeaways, etc. We had a brand new policy back in 2021, which came through consultation stage, was published, etc. Again, the cumulative impact zone, which has to be reviewed every 3 years, as opposed to the main policy, which is every 5 years, came before members in 2024. And we've just brought the policy back again, not the cumulative impact zone, because that doesn't need to be looked at until next year. But the actual main policy is due for its 5-year refresh. Now, in the light of the government's recent consultation on making some major amendments to the Licensing Act, which I'll run through in a bit, we've just done a very light touch refresh on the policy. And as a result, we've actually had quite a low number of responses. As ever, we have sent out notifications to all of our statutory partners in accordance with the guidance in terms of who we need to consult with on our licensing policy, and we've only actually had eight responses. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. One is low engagement because it's not particularly a priority. The other way, which is my preferred way of looking at it, is the policy's working well. We've only made some minor amendments, and therefore it hasn't stirred up a lot of opposition or major concerns. So what I thought we'd do, Chair, if that's all right with you, is if I run through the responses that have come in, and then I can just take a pause after each one and just make sure that you're happy with my proposals on how to deal with that. And just to say, just for clarity, the one single cumulative impact zone that we have in Weymouth, we're not proposing to change anything with that at this time. We reviewed the data, the crime and the antisocial behaviour, alcohol-related street-based crime in particular, and the proliferation of premises, particularly on licences in Weymouth. And committee decided to retain the policy in 2024. So that's for another 3 years. But that does mean that we'll need to have a proper look at it during the course of this year, ready for next year's decision. And what we thought we would do is we would give a balanced approach to that in terms of weighing up the costs of extensive licensing provision, public health wise, with the economic development and the nighttime economy and the tourism factors of what a licensing policy without a cumulative impact zone might bring to Weymouth. So we will bring that back to members during the course of at the beginning of next year. So just rolling back a bit to these responses. So there were 8 in total. The first one has actually come in from Weymouth Town Council, and it's talking about exactly that, the economic development and the importance that licensing brings to Weymouth in particular. after we've looked at these responses, I'm going to talk about the consultation that went out with the government, which Dorset Council replied to. And in that, there is a proposal to put forward an economic development objective. So you'll be aware, Chair, that we've got 4 licensing objectives. So that's prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, public safety, and protection of children from harm. Well, the government are looking at potentially introducing a 5th objective, and not along the lines of what they've got in Scotland, which is a public health objective. This would be an economic development objective. So actually, we think it's probably premature to start imposing those thoughts within the policy. So what I've proposed, Chair, is that we don't adapt the policy at this time, but that's very much at the forefront of our thinking when we review the policy later this year, with the changes that are coming in. So I'm happy to answer any questions of that. We have only got 1 CIZ zone. We do encourage responsible retailers. We assist them, especially in terms of enforcement. You know, if a premises isn't performing very well, we'll always visit, we'll talk to them about how they can improve. We don't revoke licenses very often. It's only when we've run out of options, really, and you'll be aware of that. There's quite a high bar there for us to intervene. But actually, the rest of the time, we are very encouraging, particularly of our big events, and we help them through our safety advisory group. So I'm not proposing to change the policy at this point, but I'm happy to take any questions on that first one.
I agree with you. A balanced approach is really important now, isn't it? We don't want to be seen to be draconian nor irresponsible. So yeah, that's a very, in my view, Les.
I just want to echo what John says, and I thank Weymouth Town Council for their comments, which are very constructive and helpful. But I think as a panel member, I and certainly my colleagues take into the view that we want to encourage development, we want to encourage economic growth in towns and areas. It may not be written down, but it's what we certainly consider at the time when we're considering applications. So yeah, welcome what you're saying, John, that in a review that will be formally taken forward.
Well, thank you, Chair.
Anybody else comments on that? Okay, thank you.
What we've seen over the last 5 years since that original policy came in, and you'll be aware, Chair, from previous experience, that we had that cumulative impact zone at the old Weymouth and Portland Borough Council licensing policy. So it was a continuation of that. But actually, we have seen our nighttime economy shrink somewhat, particularly in Weymouth, particularly in Melbourne Regis. And that's with our late night opening premises. So when that policy was continued in 21, we had quite a large number of late night premises that had licenses till 4, 5, 6 in the morning. Now that's shrunk quite considerably, and obviously that makes a big difference in terms of policing the nighttime economy with reduced resources for patrols, trouble, antisocial behaviour, CCTV, etc. But on the flip side, that's also not good for Weymouth in terms of its tourism offer, and bigger places like Bournemouth, etc., which do have more late night bars. So what we have to do is we have to look at the residents living in those areas. Do they want to be kept awake till 6 a.m? Do the businesses actually make a reasonable amount of profit in those later hours, and can we police those hours? So all of those sort of decisions will come back to committee at a later date, and that will include sort of the tourism side of things.
I think a very useful tool is to have permission to be open until those hours, but you don't, as we all know, you don't have to do it, but it's a very useful tool. If there's a Rugby World Cup or something else going on, it's there. Should they? It doesn't mean that every premise is going to be open till those hours, does it? Useful tool, and it can be adapted to what's going on. Jill.
Yeah, I think we also need to recognise that we shouldn't really be trying to, when we're looking at economic development, please all of the people all of the time. And it seems quite important to me that Bournemouth obviously has a very different economy, a different nightlife, and people expect it there. Whereas Weymouth is rather more family orientated for their holidays, and therefore one would expect to have that kind of nightlife that is suitable for families and younger people. So I think that we shouldn't, as a committee, be trying to, when we're looking at economic development, force that form of development if it's not necessarily appropriate in that particular town or place that it's happening.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Is it all right if I just pick up on that, Chair?
Yeah, please.
So just with that cumulative impact area that we've got, the presumption is that new licenses or extensions to existing licenses will be refused unless there's a really good argument that they should be allowed. And we've always remained flexible on that. So we've never fettered our discretion on individual applications coming forward. And if it's a different offering, something that would be beneficial to the area and something which isn't going to cause issues, then the committee are often minded to agree and to grant that. So, you know, we're quite flexible already with that decision-making process.
If it's somewhere they rave in the garden every night till 5, then perhaps not.
That's not.
Thank you. Right, George, I want to move on to the next one.
Thank you, Chair. So this next one was from Narcotics Anonymous, and it named a couple of premises where they've got concerns based on feedback from, I think in particular, young people that are out in the nighttime economy and may be consuming illegal substances. Ketamine is mentioned here. Now, it's true that there is a nationwide problem with ketamine addiction and use, which can have some really serious side effects in terms of medical debilitation for heavy users. And this is of great concern to us. And we are already working with the police on this intelligence with these premises. So you'll be well aware that a couple of years ago we had an issue with a late night premises that had a drug dealing problem, and that was as a result of an undercover police operation by Dorset Police, and that application came to committee and it was subsequently revoked on the basis that evidence of running a bad operation was overwhelming at the time. And I just want to assure the committee that we are working with the police on this intelligence. I'm not going to allude to whether or not an application for review will be forthcoming, but if it's deemed necessary and appropriate, then of course it will. And I just, you know, we do have problems with drugs in nighttime premises. It's, you know, there's no point beating around the bush and saying that it doesn't happen, because it does. I wouldn't say we've got a particularly bad problem. I think we work really closely with our licensed operators, and we do go out and we do drug testing. We have swabs that we use. We go out with police do undercover operations, and we go and we visit premises and we help them to be as good as they can be. And, you know, we talk about action plans, and we look at better lighting, better patrols, better searching, a better eviction policy. So there's a number of tools that we can use to assist, and this is happening at the moment. So
I think it's fair to say this is really active at the minute, isn't it? Working very hard on that with those authorities. Les.
Sorry, Councillor Les Fry, Dorset West. We should introduce ourselves, I guess. I've seen an article recently in the press that Dorset has got one of the highest uses of ketamine. Can you comment on that, John? And do we know where it's coming from or what action is being taken? If it's because, yeah, it's quite a worrying comment to read in the press media.
So if I put one of my other hats on, community safety wise, yes, and this is quite readily recognised by our public health team that there is a problem in Dorset with access to ketamine. Now, I don't know whether that's because we're a rural area and we've got a lot of horses. It's a horse tranquilizer, of course, or whether or not it's infiltration from organised crime gangs, or whether it's imports from outside the area. But there has been a lot of work recently with the police and the public health team on raising awareness and looking at those potential supply chains. And there is work going on behind the scenes with Dorset Police to try and crack down on that and deal with that. So we are aware. It's work in progress. It's not an easy fix. It seems to be the drug of the moment. It's readily available. It's relatively cheap. it's not as expensive as cocaine, for example, and it seems to be relatively fashionable at the minute. I have absolutely no idea why, because the side effects are quite horrific. So it's a case of educating our young people in particular on the harms of becoming addicted to that and hurting yourself.
John, is it possible that we could have perhaps a briefing paper on what is happening there with ketamine behind the scenes? Because we, as councillors representing the community, may be asked, what are we doing about it? And that may be liaising with the police to find out what they do, what they can tell us appropriately, and what we as the community safety are doing and everything else. That might be just a useful either a briefing document or a webinar about what we're tackling, because potentially that looks like one of the greatest threats to our young people at this time within the drug and misuse of substance world.
I'm happy to take that away as an action.
Do you mind if I take Graham first?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Just to say that there is a current campaign running from our public health colleagues. Some may have seen it. It's doing very well on social media about the risks of ketamine use, and I'm sure public health colleagues would be glad to provide information. So what I will ensure there is that information is circulated to committee members after today's meeting.
Thank you, Graham. I've just been made aware by one of my colleagues here of the NHS campaign about that. I wasn't aware of that. And I think it'd be worth bringing it all from the NHS, police and ourselves together, what is going on. If nothing else, that will help us raise the profile of the problem within our own constituencies.
I think there are questions which we all get all the time, aren't they? What are we doing about it and how? Yeah, so that's useful. David.
The reference to the report in the papers regarding Dorset's use of ketamine, is it referring particularly to the area of Dorset or to Dorset Council excluding BCP, or combination of both?
Can you recall where it's combination of both? We could be being dragged into a little bit of something.
This is where I was coming from, yes.
So it might be BCP, which is Dorset, and rather, so it would be useful. John, can you answer that a bit more? Do you know, is it general or is it
I think
specific area?
what I'd like to do, Chair, with your permission, is to take that away as an action, to speak to colleagues in Dorset Police and Public Health and to pull a briefing paper.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just answer that off the cuff.
I think this has raised an issue which we are all fairly concerned about, so thank you both for that. Sarah.
Yeah, I sit on the Crime Commissioners panel, and it is both.
It is both.
And I know that there's been quite a lot of work done with Crime Commission officers for police, for health, for a campaign on this. But I think it would be worth sort of having a chat with the colleagues from BCP to see what they're.
I think it's quite sensible without scaremongering. I think it's good for us to know what the reality is, what's happening, and why, and how we can respond. So thank you both for that, John.
So I was just going to say, so the proposal based on that is not to make any changes to the policy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take away an action.
Yeah,
to
absolutely,
put it up
perfect,
on
yeah.
the-
Thank you. I think everyone will agree with that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
The next one, so I've just moved on to the next response, which came in, and it's very similar in relation to talking about drugs, antisocial behaviour, young people in the nighttime economy, and names a couple of different, well, it talks about a venue and a security team, which I'm not going to get drawn into, but again, Chair, that is known to us, and we do have a engagement process with the premises concerned, and if we are unable to facilitate an improvement, then that may well be subject to enforcement action.
I know a lot of stuff which comes from the public is a bit speculative, but if we actually had concerns in our own wards about activity, I think we discussed that running it by you and the team is quite important at this stage, so at least you can check out whether it's right and wrong and take action. Really, we won't be bombarded with rumour, but it's useful if we're getting a lot of it. Yeah.
So that's exactly that. The first stage is to substantiate any allegations and then work with premises operators to see if we can make a real difference. And then we work so closely with our police licensing team. We meet them every week. We talk about what's happened the previous week, and we put an action plan and who's going to lead, who's going to visit, and how we're going to deal with that. So that happens every single week.
Thank you. Okay, if we move on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So again, with this next comment, it's not drug relating. This one, it's a little bit to do with. It looks like a bad experience in one of our licensed premises. So again, we're engaging with those premises concerned.
Just the one with Wareham Town Council, Sir John?
No, this is the one before that. Les, on page 10 of the consultation report.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
So
I listed that one with the same comments as the previous.
they're all very similar, yeah. So there was 3 complaints about licensed premises and the problems that are perceived to be experiencing, and we're looking at all 3 of them.
Perfect. Thank you.
So yes, so that leads me on nicely. Thank you. Just to Wareham Town Councils, and this is really timely. This one, and I kind of appreciate the importance of it. So with what we've seen in Switzerland with the bar fire and those horrible deaths, particularly of young people, where flammable, it looks like it may well have been flammable material attached to the roof for sound deadening purposes, and some celebrational sparklers in champagne. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? So we have different rules here, and the fire safety rules on basement premises with only one fire exit is 30 maximum capacity. So we couldn't, in theory, have a situation like that unless someone was blatantly ignoring the rules on fire safety. And our fire safety team are at DWFRS, so Dorset Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Service, are really proactive when it comes to talking to licensed premises about their capacities, their fire safety risk assessments, their alarm systems, their sprinkler suppressions, their firefighting equipment, their training. So all of those things. What we have done is we've engaged with them and are proposing to do some joint visits and some awareness training, advice sessions for licensed premises in relation to the use of flammable materials in nighttime economy areas. Sadly, this is quite common. We see these sort of nightclub fires quite frequently. Not so much in the UK, quite often abroad in other premises. And it is a constant battle just to raise awareness of the dangers that can happen. Our difficulty is that we're governed by the Licensing Act and the Section 182 guidance in how prescriptive we can be within the policy. And we're not permitted to duplicate existing legislation. You'll be aware, Chair, that the old way of doing things was the fire safety officer would come to your premises and would tell you what you can and can't do, and that would be on your certificate. Now that all got scrapped with the 2005 Fire Safety Regulatory Reform Order, and it all switched over to operator-based risk assessments. And if the fire safety officer wasn't happy with that, then they could take enforcement action and ask for it to be improved or issue prohibitions, etc. So it placed the onus on the operator. Now, there's a clear risk there, isn't it? And where we've seen horrible disasters like Grenfell, where making money allegedly is more important than having safe processes and products, there is a risk. I don't think it's right and proper for us to include occupancy figures on premises licenses. We do have some which have been grandfather right transferred over from the old public entertainment licenses. So we do have some of them, but we don't routinely impose them. Now, I have worked with premises, not endorse it, where they've completely ignored their capacity calculations on their risk assessments. and I've reviewed those licenses and revoked them. So we can take action if there's clearly a problem. But actually, the correct way to deal with that is probably through the Fire Safety Office at DWFRS. And so we are working with them on raising awareness and making sure that, in particular, our late night venues, so those venues that have a terminal hour past 1 a.m., that we're visiting those and we're talking to them. So I'm not proposing a change at this point, but it is a really valid comment.
Yes, thank you. Again, it's something that's very topical at the moment for all the right reasons, Les.
Thank you, Councillor Les West. John, I support your view that numbers in the premises are less important than the safety of the building. It doesn't matter whether it's 10 under a number or 10 over. If the building's not safe, the building's not safe. I suppose the question I have is, what tie-up is there between building regulations, fire inspection, and ourselves licensing team to make sure that any renovations, a bit like happened in Switzerland, people making changes then not inspected? I'm hoping that would not get missed in the melee of what's going on, if you see what I mean.
It's a really interesting point, Chair. So we have had those conversations with David Kitcat, who's the head of building control here at the council, and he advised us that whenever an application is made, then they visit and they check and they give advice and they make sure that they're compliant with building regs and British standards. But actually, unless they make an application, there's no routine inspection on behalf of the building authority. So that would fall more lightly for the fire safety team. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're good at intelligence sharing, so that when we've got, and we do this, when a premises comes to light that there might be an issue there, that we signpost them to the right agency to help them, and also we notify that agency that they need a visit. And so we do that already. I think it's a little bit of a gap in the safety setup, if I'm honest.
So if Mr. Miggins develops and improves or creates his nightclub, or improves his nightclub, what do you think? So put some unsafe materials, sound deadening material in it. There's nobody really going to check unless we get intelligence on it.
No,
That's really worrying.
Well, what they should do, legally, they're obliged to update their fire safety risk assessment and provide a revised copy of that to the Fire Safety Office, who will then trigger a visit and advise them that it's probably not a good idea having combustible materials and it would probably need to be removed. Or
that's relying on the operator raising it with fire rescue. And if their balance sheet is questionable or concerned, as they are at the moment with what's going on with the government, increasing all the operating costs, would you report it to fire and rescue if your business was going to be shut down temporarily?
I think if I was keen to comply with the law, I would. If I wasn't aware that that was an obligation on me, or I was struggling as a business, then potentially I might be tempted not to. Yes.
It's a worry.
So we visit our licensed premises. My licensing officers are out all the time, and our actual inspections have been increasing year on year with the amount of time, with the changes that we've made, in particular to taxi licensing and the automation of DBS checks and license checks. That has freed up a bit of time for our officers to get out and do more enforcement. Now, a lot of that is taxi based, but also license premises based. And where we would come in, we would potentially flag that up as an issue and alert the DWFRS that
if we know about it.
If we visit and we see that, yes.
Are you happy with the content?
I'm very happy, but I'm quite concerned that there is a loop of the processes there that may not support and keep people safe. But I know my colleague over the table's got a question.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Councillor Jill Haynes, I think there's also an element here of owners doing stuff unwittingly. So new electrical wiring in order to make your deck and your lights be brighter, lighter, louder, whatever, doesn't need any sort of inspection or building regs or what have you. And they may decide they're going to get a mate in to do it who's supposed to know what they're doing, and hand on heart, they think they've done a good job. But it isn't. So I think Les is quite right to bring up this business of refurbishment, shall we call it, without there having to be planning or without there being inspections in it, because that is where the danger and the loopholes are.
Wouldn't the annual PAT testing, etc., inspection be part of that to remedy that?
So our health and safety team do deal with commercial premises, and so their inspection regime is based on risk. So premises are risk rated. So I'm speaking with our health and safety food port health team leader about how we try to make sure that we are visiting those late night premises that we've identified. Exactly that. So where they've had electrical upgrades, installations that they've been done by a competent person who's commercial licensed, that they've got the NIC safety certificate, and that's been provided. And if it hasn't, then the health and safety enforcement team have the ability to serve an improvement notice or a prohibition notice and to get that rectified. And that can cover all sorts of things. So that can cover gas safety, slips, trips and falls, unsound structures, etc. So there is the ability to do that. We just need to make sure that we're getting out there and giving that advice.
Thank you, Chair. Support what John said, and so what Councillor Fryer said in terms of this being a really important issue. I think in Dorset we're fortunate in that we have excellent relationships, as John has alluded to, with Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue and our building control colleagues. Whether that's sufficient, just having good relationships is questionable. I think nationally that the ripples and the shockwaves from the incident in Switzerland will cause a look at how the UK regulates refurbishments in places of entertainment. So I know John's keeping a close watch on what might come out nationally in terms of further guidance or possibly changes to legislation. But I think meanwhile we will do all that we can to work closely with our colleagues to ensure that the sort of situations which Councillor Haynes has mentioned are recognised, and that might be through doing really good communications with our licensed premises to remind them of the issues following the incident in Switzerland and the good practice that they should follow and where they can go for advice, because no business owner wants to be in the same position as the business owners in Switzerland at the moment.
Thank you very much, Les.
Graham, thank you for that, and I welcome the fact and acknowledge the fact that you've got good working relationships with the fire rescue, building regs, and so on, and that's essential for smooth operation. I think anybody going forward doing any work is likely to be picked up following the Switzerland incident and highlighted. I think my concern is those who've already done the cheap, shoddy work already, and people have got used to that ceiling and those lights in that sound system in the place, and just got used to it, and it's just there, and nobody's picked up on the fact that it's poorly administered or fixed. And I think that's where my fear is as we go forward. But I am reassured by your comments, but equally quite concerned that we're not able to keep our people safe because we don't know where all the problems lie.
Are we all happy with the content of the policy going forward? Yeah. Okay, on that point, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the last response was from another of our town councils. It's just in relation to our notification of new applications and variations. The request was that we formalise existing arrangements within the policy. I did and ah a little bit about this one because I'm not necessarily against the idea of having a note within the policy on how we notify partners about new applications. I've sort of leaned on the side that it's not particularly necessary because our notification procedures are quite fluid and we do adapt them from time to time. We do send out emails, we do notify our town council colleagues of new applications within their area. We do have our online register of new applications that come in, and we do get really good engagement with them already, so I didn't really feel the need to formalise that within the policy. I'm happy to take a steer on it, but actually I thought we're already doing it, it's working really well. I don't necessarily need to update the policy to reflect that.
The flip side maybe is that I believe is still the case when the other planning and highways do notify people or get the companies to notify the immediate neighbours of what's going on. I think those that might live above and next door and such like, they should know, they should be aware, they see the blue sign. Is it, we have had people come to us and say, I wasn't aware. And I think really, well, and I know we're quite strict on putting the notices where they can be seen, because sometimes they're around the corner and hidden under a bush, aren't they? But yeah, just a thought. I don't know if we should tighten it up. I don't know what my colleagues feel. Emma.
Emma Parker, member for Puddletown and Lower Winsbourne. Just on that, obviously, ward members do get an update every Monday of every application, and that's application as it's going forward. So it's not as though you get it on there at the very beginning and it disappears. It's on there until it gets to its final stages. So there's that way to liaise with residents and town and parish council should they need it.
You might want to suggest that Lyme Regis Town Council liaise with their local ward member and ask them to send the information across and have a link up between there. That's probably the best way forward.
We notify town council already. Yeah, we already notify them. So when the application comes in, they have to put a blue notice up. And if it's a big site, they have to put blue notices every 50 metres. We always go and check those because quite often we have problems with where they are and how long they stay up for. They also have to put a notice in the newspaper, in the local newspaper. We have to put a notice on our website and keep a register. And then in addition to that, we let ward members know and town councils know of what's come in. So we're already going above and beyond. Just to pick up on your point about the near neighbour notifications, Town and Country Planning Act is different to Licensing Act, and there is a requirement to notify near neighbours within that. We don't do that, and there's a really good reason for that, and it goes back to a piece of case law with Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea and the Royal Albert Hall of all places, where they used to do neighbour notifications within a 50-metre radius of the premises. And unfortunately, they missed out 2 properties who appealed against a decision, went through judicial review, I believe, and there's case stated law that actually the council got themselves into a bit of a muddle with it because they hadn't followed their procedures properly. And like most councils, we took a view that actually it's probably safer just to use the existing mechanisms as directed and to use emails rather than to go out and put notice up, which is actually really very expensive and a little bit hit and miss as they found out.
And jungle drums, if it's something really contentious, work quite swiftly anyway, don't they, in the real world?
Yes, well, so if a really contentious application comes in, you often find that there's a local activist that will go around and knock on doors and drum up support and petitions anyway, which is fine. You know that it's a democratic regime, isn't it? So we don't often see applications of a contentious nature slipping through under the wire unnoticed. It doesn't really happen.
So you're happy with that element of
That's really good. Thank you. Happy with that.
That's everything. So now we need just to recommend that.
The full council 10th of February.
So we've heard, we've listened, we've asked the questions. Well, I have a proposal that this is fit and proper to go forward. Yeah, all those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Right, we don't have any urgent items or exempt business, do we, John?
No urgent.
Thank you. And so thank you very much. Then 10 minutes ago, we'll then move to our next committee, which is a different one. So would you like a 5-minute break while we get set up and John sets up all the bits and pieces? Yeah.
Great. If you just